You are watching the New American Media. Hello, America, and happy Friday, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. I am your host, Brian Engelman, and welcome to the Unhappy Hour, the only Cleveland-centric, Los Angeles-based sports program that I'm currently aware of here on thenewamericanmedia.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, Friday, July 20th, 2012. You know what it means, late July, getting ready for some football action. Baseball past the All-Star break, moving into the playoffs. Trying to figure out how that's all going to play out. NBA season done. It's time for NFL action. We are going to be talking about that today. This is going to be our second installment of Strictly Browns. We're kind of shifting gears over here and moving into the conversation about the Cleveland Browns and all things NFL for that matter. I want to thank our sponsor real quick, Three Black Cats. They have tribal belly dance accessories, homemade herbal products. Guys, go out there, pick up a couple of things, put them in a box. Next time there's an anniversary, a birthday, something you're supposed to remember and give a gift, pull them out of the box. Go to threeblackcats.storeenvy.com. That's the number 3blackcats.storeenvy.com. We are pleased once again to be joined with Brandon O'Dell. Brandon, welcome back to Strictly Browns, Episode 2. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Living the dream. Living the dream. Cannot complain. It is a little warm over here. I know you guys have been getting hammered. Well, not drunk hammered here on the Unhappy Hour, but you're getting bombarded with heat without relief of precipitation. Has it still been the same this past week?
Actually, no. Right now, it's a beautiful day. It's 81 degrees and partly cloudy. And in the last, I would say, 36 hours, about 36 hours, we are up to we've gotten about 3 inches of rain.
Oh, well, that's better than 0 inches of rain because
it's a lot of rain.
You know what it's like. You know that this time in late July, getting into August, you played high school football. You know what it's like this time of year. A lot of practice, a lot of getting ready for the season, a lot of exercise and conditioning, and it's good that you're not getting drenched in heat without the precipitation. I know things have been pretty tough for a large portion of the country, so I'm glad to hear you're getting some rain. Let's get right into the Cleveland Browns, shall we? We talked last week a little bit about the supplemental draft, the history of Bernie Kosar, how he ended up as a Cleveland Brown back in the day. Talked about the new, former Baylor Bear and Utah Ute Josh Gordon, wide receiver, joining the Browns a year early. We basically drafted him in next year's draft this year. So we talked a lot of offense, and I think where we could take it this episode would be to talk about the Cleveland Browns defense. We all saw that they had a pretty solid defense last year and just kept wondering when they're going to get some offensive weapons because it's hard to win games scoring 3 or 7 or 10 points. So let's just take it wherever you feel like going regarding the defense, Brandon.
I think that certainly all off season, the defense has been the side of the ball that, for lack of a better word, has really been overlooked. And I think that's a little bit erroneous on the part of Browns fans, because certainly out of the 2 sides of the ball, well, I guess 3 sides of the ball if you count special teams, but the defense is light years ahead of the offense. And really, in many respects, the defense, there are a lot more things, maybe not necessarily to be excited about, because there are a lot of things about the offense to be excited about. However, a different word for the defense is there are things you can actually be confident about. And when you're talking about a young football team, confidence goes a lot further than excitement.
Okay, so we're not necessarily excited, but we're confident that there's a lot of, at least, positions on the Cleveland Browns right now on the defensive side that we have some pretty solid players that are going to give us consistent effort. I mean, I guess there are so many ways to go here, because DeQuell Jackson, obviously coming off of last season. He had a very good year. Joe Hayden, draft pick, who turned out nicely. Phil Taylor had his injury on the defensive line. So I'll leave it up to you. How do you want to go through this here and kind of start breaking down piece by piece? You want to go secondary, middle to the linebackers to the secondary, or just kind of toss it all over the place?
Why don't we start with the Hogs up front first? Certainly, there was a lot of controversy this offseason, or a lot of Browns fans that were up in arms over the announcement that last year's first-round draft pick, who, remember, was the first-round draft pick that we ended up getting after the Julio Jones deal and everything that went along with that. The first-round draft pick from last year, Phil Taylor, a huge man, over 330 pounds, and he tore a pectoral muscle during off-season workouts. And right now, the way that everyone understands it is that he will be out until at least mid-season, but there is a lot of hope that he will be fully available for the second half of the season. So that was a big blow to the defensive line. However, there are others there to be able to maybe not necessarily take his place, but at least be some stopgap solutions.
Let me jump in there, though, because, I mean, before we get to the stopgap solutions, that's a big gap to stop, because we're talking about a guy in Phil Taylor that's 6'3", 335 pounds. This isn't just a big boy. This is a ginormous boy. So whoever's filling in for him, they literally have some big shoes and big waistbands to fill. So who are the leading contenders now to jump in and take those spots until Phil Taylor can make himself healthy again?
Well, the two draft picks this year that the Browns picked up for the defensive line were John Hughes out of Cincinnati and Billy Wynn, who is out of Boise State. And both of these men, especially in Wynn's case, are players who have gotten a lot of playing time in pretty successful college programs. I mean, certainly Boise State gets a lot of publicity, but let's not forget that the University of Cincinnati has, maybe not necessarily this past season, but in the last few years, it's been a pretty successful program. I believe they even went to a BCS bowl game either 2 or 3 seasons ago. So certainly both played for programs that where they certainly saw some big time games. And really, even though he was the later draft pick, Billy Wynn actually, at least early on, has been getting a lot of publicity as being the early inside track man to be able to be that stopgap solution. John Hughes is certainly an intriguing prospect and is a bit larger or wider than Billy Wynn. Billy Wynn is said to have a little bit more of a wingspan, and he has that height. And the hope is that he might be able to get a little bit more penetration. He might be able to supply the penetration that we're lacking from Phil Taylor, and John Hughes might be able to supply the girth that we're lacking from Phil Taylor, even though John Hughes himself is not is about maybe 15 to 20 pounds lighter than what Phil Taylor is. So maybe between the two of them, they can equal one Phil Taylor.
Well, Billy Wynn, we're talking defensive lineman out of Boise State, 6'3", 296, 23 years old, rookie. I mean, he's a big boy himself, 4 pounds away from 3 bills. Definitely not the 330, but yeah, he's a big boy as well. So you're anticipating that Billy Wynn might, like you said, have the inside track, but that John Hughes might get rotated in and out of that spot. Am I kind of understanding that close?
A lot of the talk that I've heard is that they actually like John Hughes a little bit better.
Oh, okay.
To be. No, let me finish my sentence. They like John Hughes a little bit better to be the individual that spells Ataba Rubin. And Wynn was originally drafted supposedly in the hopes that he would be kind of taking the more of the Phil Taylor role. Now, those are just certainly all interchangeable parts. So there's certainly something to be said for these players being able to play at several different spots. And obviously, in Dick Duran's defense, you need to be able to line up in different fronts and in different spots along the line. So to say that either of them would only be found in one spot might be a little bit of an understatement. But let's think about Ataba Rubin a little bit. He might be the forgotten man on this defensive line. Ataba Rubin, yearly for the last several years, has made it on a lot of underrated NFL player lists and still is very much an unsung player on the Browns roster that very few people talk about. But in many respects, he was one of the most solid players on the Browns defense last year. So we have Ataba Rubin coming back, and he's going to be fully healthy. He's going to be able to help some of these younger guys. And then we have two free agent additions that are going to be coming in at the defensive end spots in Frosty Rucker out of Cincinnati and Juquay Parker, who is probably going to be there to spell either Frosty Rucker or Jabaal Sheard on the other side. Juquay Parker coming in as a backup out of Philadelphia.
Okay, now before we jump over to the defensive ends, a position I am quite familiar with, a position I played myself. We're talking about Ataba Rubin. You know, he's got 4 years in the league, 08, 09, 10, and 11. He went from, as far as tackles go, 11, 38, 82, 83. So you're talking he started 16 games back-to-back in 2010, 2011. Almost identical tackle numbers, 82 and 83. Then sack numbers in 2010 went from 2 to 5 in 2011. And, yeah, I mean, you got a 6'2", 330-pound, 25-year-old player that really, like you said, an unsung player, a forgotten player, if you will, on the defensive line. I mean, he's fairly solid. He's a very consistent player, like you were saying, as far as flash and hype. You know, you might not be getting all of that with this defense, but this Cleveland Browns defense was ranked number 10 out of the entire league last year. So, yeah, you're right. Rubin does bring something to the table, and he is often overlooked. Do you think you're going to expect, if you had to guess, do you think you'll see a drop-off in production, more of the same, or do you think a breakout season for Rubin?
Well, I think I think more of the same would probably be the best place to start. I think a lot of it certainly has to do with how soon we can expect Phil Taylor back. Once again, the procedure that he had done to repair the pectoral tear supposedly was only a partial tear, which is able to be rehabilitated a little bit more quickly than the full tear, obviously. But all indications are we could have him back possibly before Thanksgiving. So if that could happen, that could really give Ataba Rubin a nice boost towards the end of the season. I think a lot of it, as far as how well Ataba Rubin is able to perform, has a lot to do with the play of those rookies. I think you know what you're going to get out of the free agent additions. Jabaal Sheard is certainly a little bit of a question mark because he has only played 1 year in the NFL. And we have all seen examples of players who really have come on pretty strongly as rookies and then for whatever reason have had that sophomore slump. So we're hoping that we don't see that out of Jabaal Sheard. And if we can expect a rise in production out of Jabaal Sheard, then certainly that would only help the overall progress of Ataba Rubin as well.
That's a fair point. So let's talk about those two defensive ends that you were mentioning a moment ago. Let's talk about their acquisition and what it might mean on the outside, and how you see them fitting in. I mean, Frosty Rucker coming over from Cincinnati. What do you expect over there?
Well, Frosty Rucker is a solid starter. I think he is an upgrade over Jamie Mitchell, whom he was brought in to replace. Jamie Mitchell, if you might remember, was a guy that I believe it was still under Eric Mangini's watch, because it wasn't last season, it was the season before. He was picked up, I believe, it's kind of, I almost want to say possibly, no, it wasn't Philadelphia. Either way, he was picked up for a late-round draft pick off of another team after basically being cast off by that team, and didn't play it down for the Browns in 2010, and basically was a glorified practice squad player, even though there was a roster spot reserved for him for half of the season, just because of the fact that supposedly he didn't fit the current defense's scheme. He was given the chance to be a starter last year in the first year of Dick Duran's defense. By the time 2/3 of the year had passed, he was benched in favor of Brian Schafering getting a lot of playing time there. Brian Schafering is still with the team right now, as is Scott Paxson, both of whom are capable backups, nothing more. So they brought in Frosty Rucker to be a solid starter. He's supposed to be good against the run while still having the ability to get to the quarterback, something that Jamie Mitchell just simply wasn't able to do. Juquay Parker is a backup, nothing more. I don't think he expected to be anything more, but he's one of those solid rotation guys that hopefully you can count on being in there, especially on first and second down, to be able to stop the run.
Now, by the way, Jamie Mitchell, he came over as on a 2-year deal as an unrestricted free agent, and you're right. This happened. This was posted on PlainDealer.com on July 29th, 2011. 2-year deal, and he never really panned out at all. He had 5 career sacks in 5 NFL seasons. Got him off of the Vikings roster, and I think he's down in Tampa Bay now. Yeah, that did not work out. So Frosty Rucker you have on one side, and Parker as the backup. Who do we have over at the other side? Are we talking that's going to be Sheard then?
Absolutely. Jabaal Sheard, who showed a very promising rookie campaign, ability to get to the quarterback, showed a variety of moves. He wasn't just a power bull rush kind of guy, and in fact, he is a shorter, lighter defensive end compared to some of his NFL counterparts, and so the bull rush can't really necessarily be his only move, but he has certainly shown that he can be a promising player. Now can he build upon that? If he can build upon that, there's no reason to believe that he can't be a 10 to 13 sack type of guy for you.
Because what you had out of Sheard, he's 6'2", 255, coming out of Pittsburgh in college, 23 years old. Last year, 8.5 sacks. Not too shabby to start. 5 forced fumbles. That's a number I really like. 2 pass defenses, but 5 forced fumbles. That's nice. I love players that are always keeping an eye on the ball. To grab a fumble when the ball pops out. It's very quick reaction time. But when you're going in on a tackle, just to have that instinct to grab and rip, that's something I've watched the Steelers do so well for multiple decades now. Certain teams are just taught how to do that, and sometimes it seems like the Browns get that, sometimes they don't. So, like you were saying, there are sophomore slumps out of players. Do you think Sheard may have to really pay attention to guard against that, or do you think he's going to continue his growth this season, if you had to guess as of right now?
I think it all comes down to health with him. He has shown, at least through that rookie year, that he was able to stay healthy for all 16 games. I think with any young player, it's about how well you take care of your body, and honestly, it's a little bit of a roll of the dice besides that. If we can keep him healthy, there was no reason to believe that those numbers can't increase.
Well, you got to like what you got out of him in the first season. We're talking with Brandon O'Dell here on Strictly Browns. It's kind of an addendum to the Unhappy Hour Live Cleveland-centric sports show here on the NewAmericanMedia.com. Brandon, what I'm thinking is we can hit a little reset here, and then we can talk a little bit about the linebackers. We still going to have you for a couple minutes?
Sure.
Okay, well, what we want to do is, once again, thank our sponsor for this segment. It is 3 Black Cats. Go ahead and take a look. Tribal Belly Dance Accessories, homemade herbal products. If you want to help support thenewamericanmedia.com, you can go to 3blackcats.storenvy.com. Guys, stock up on a few things. Put them in a box, and when you forgot about a birthday, an anniversary, a niece is going through something, a graduation gift, you have a bunch of cool things, really cool earrings, cool boxes. Just go take a look at their website, and you'll never be worried about what you need to gift somebody again. Go to 3blackcats.storenvy.com. Once again, that's the number 3blackcats.storenvy.com. We're going to take this quick break, and we're going to be back. We're going to be talking about the Cleveland Browns linebacker situation coming up in the 2012 campaign on thenewamericanmedia.com. You are watching The New American Media.